In Texas City, Texas, and around the nation, the oil refining industry is happy about an increase in demand for its products, but wonders whether the trend will last. Meanwhile, in Palm Beach, Florida, members of the public gaming industry say they expect their business to continue to improve. And in Los Angeles, Dan Lundberg looks at the odds for a change in the nation's energy situation.
Those and other stories on the Nightly Business Report with Del Frank, Linda O'Brien, and Paul Kangas. Brought to you by Digital Equipment Corporation, the world's second largest computer company, providing computer solutions for professionals from professionals. Pacific Telesis Group, including Pacific Bell, builder of the communications network for the 1984 Olympic Games. And public television stations throughout the nation. Now, the Nightly Business Report.
Good evening. Del Frank is off tonight. In Detroit, the United Auto Workers Union today decided to designate a single company as its strike target after all, and it settled on General Motors. That means that only GM will be faced with the threat of a walkout if a new contract is not reached by next Friday's deadline. In addition, GM's contract with the UAW is expected to serve as the model for Ford in its negotiations with the union. Although a strike against GM would drain more money from the UAW strike fund than one against Ford, UAW President Owen Bieber said concentrating on GM should provide the best deal for all auto workers.
General Motors, in my view, offers the best opportunity for an agreement which, in fact, will achieve our principal goals. And they are job security and an economic settlement that represents equality and fairness to our members.
We think that now is the time for the development of an agreement that will permit us to be competitive, thereby supply job security, and at the same time satisfy the needs of our employees and our union. If we were to fail to recognize the need to be competitive, then I think indeed we could jeopardize all the things for which all of us have tried.
Warren also said that GM is glad that the UAW selected it as the strike target because the contract that emerges will be tailored to General Motors rather than another automaker. Paul?
As far as Wall Street was concerned so far this week, buyers had been conducting a strike of their own, which had been effective enough to send the Dow Industrial Average down over 15.25 points, all of which has confounded the majority of analysts who were expecting a good post-Labor Day rally. This morning, however, buyers crossed the picket lines and went to work with enough enthusiasm to get stock prices moving nicely higher. Some of the buying could be linked to technical factors because of the somewhat oversold condition of the market. But perhaps the most positive influence was an improvement in bond prices, which came after the Fed funds rate moved a bit lower. By the end of the first hour of big board trading, the industrial average was up almost 4 points as stocks with gains established a wide 7-3 lead over losers. Opening hour volume perked up to 26.5 million shares from yesterday's lackluster 17.75 million. Today's improved activity on the rally encouraged traders to lean more heavily on the buy side over the midday hours as they sensed that this might be the possible revival of the summer rally. Chrysler's announcement that it was increasing its quarterly cash dividend from 20 to 25 cents a share was another confidence builder for the bulls. By 1 o'clock then, the industrial average was sporting better than a 7.25 point gain, and there were 9 stocks up for every 5 down in price. The market continued its winning ways in mid-afternoon, partly with the help of some short covering purchases by bearish traders running to cover. The fact that General Motors stock continued to show a fractional gain even after the United Auto Workers said it would be the target of a strike, if there is one, was quite impressive too. At 3 o'clock, the industrial average was up almost 11.5 points, with 10 stocks higher for every 4 lower. The market settled back a bit in the final hour as traders headed to the sidelines to await the weekly money supply figures. So the Dow Industrial Average had to settle for a closing gain of 9.83 at 1218.86. And the transport index up nearly 4 points, utilities up almost a full point. That's a good gain there, and some good advances in all the broadly based indexes as well. Then the Federal Reserve reported in the week ending August 27th, the M1 money supply fell $700 million. Nothing earth-shaking, but at least the direction was encouraging. I'll be back with the details on stock shortly, but first let's see how the precious metals and major currencies did today.
In Washington, Interior Secretary William Clark today defended the Reagan administration's program of leasing offshore tracts on the outer continental shelf for oil drilling. Clark told the National Press Club that with oil imports accounting for 3/4 of the U.S. trade deficit, the nation urgently needs oil, and he spoke against a House-passed moratorium on lease sales involving areas off the Massachusetts and California coasts.
The unreasonable delay of these programs, once mandated by Congress, represents an injustice to future Americans who may well find themselves again short of gasoline, heat, light, jobs, short on energy, material essential to defense of our country and our allies. Now that's why we've labored so hard for these programs, and that's why we've gone the extra hour to give states a strong voice in the processes.
In a related development, the state of Massachusetts today filed suit to block the federal government's planned sale of oil exploration leases to 6.5 million acres off the New England coast. That sale, which includes some prime fishing grounds, is scheduled to take place later this month. Although Interior Secretary Clark denies that an oil glut exists, the nation's oil refineries might take issue with him, noting recent weakness in gasoline demand and prices. And while oil refining has picked up lately, many companies in that business wonder whether that trend will last, as Bill Watts of our Houston Bureau reports from Texas City, Texas.
The nation's petroleum refiners are hoping a recent increase in prices and profits is the signal of a new trend. But some are skeptical about any refining business turnaround. The industry's good news started at the end of July, when spot market prices for gasoline began to increase.
What we're seeing is that the spread between gasoline prices and crude oil costs have increased by about $1 per barrel over the past month to the point of where they're at about $4 now. And as you look at gasoline relative to residual fuel oil, you're now at about a $6 margin.
Despite the good news, refiners remain cautious, uncertain whether the new price trend will last, and some doubt that good times are just around the corner.
My overall feeling is that so long, however, as the industry has the surplus capacity that it certainly has not only in the U.S. but worldwide, I think it's going to be very difficult to see the refining industry as a profitable industry.
The refining industry is now operating at only 76% of capacity, even though about 100 refineries have been shut down since 1981. The industry is also worried about the growing number of foreign refineries and the business they will take. One issue that divides refiners is the federal government's proposal to cut by 90% the amount of lead permitted in regular gas. Some refiners can more easily meet the proposed regulations, while others might be forced out of business by the retooling cost.
They are proposing this to be effective January 1, 1986. In order for the industry to do that, it will have to build additional equipment, and since it takes 3 to 4 years to design, engineer, and construct, there's not enough time.
Many refiners want the new federal regulations delayed for 2 years until 1988. And the government seems likely to go along. But overcapacity is seen as a much tougher problem to solve.
Even with the recent increases in the wholesale price of gasoline, the outlook for the U.S. refining industry is not that positive. Only another disruption in Mideast oil supplies or a major shakeout in the industry is considered likely to improve profits very much. In Texas City, Texas, I'm Bill Watts for the Nightly Business Report.
Well, some of the bears were shaken out of the market today, as we see by these closing averages. Nothing but plus signs and a pleasant change after 2 days of losses. Industrial's up nearly 10 points, and the transport's quite strong, up 4, and then good gains all the rest of the way down the line on the popular averages. Trading volume, 91.9 million shares, way up from yesterday, and that is the most active volume since August 22nd, when 116 million shares changed hands. Up volume better than 3 times down volume. And better than 2 times as many gainers as losers. So it was a nice broad-based rally. 27 new highs for the year and only 5 new lows. Middle-South Utilities was the most active issue on 1.5 million shares, and it was a big loser, tumbling 1 3/8 after the company said that it may have some financing problems in completing its 2-unit Grand Gulf nuclear reactors. Gould Incorporated, another loser, second in volume, down 2 5/8. Gould said that it's rather disappointed with sales in its semiconductor division, could earn earnings overall for the year. And we see American Broadcasting, ABC, after a 6-point gain yesterday, moving up another 2 1/8 points on buyout speculation. Nothing definite yet. American Express up 5/8. And Fannie Mae, Federal National Mortgage, fifth in activity, up 7/8. There was a positive article about it in this week's Barron's Financial. Digital Equipment down 1/8 today. Mobile gaining 3/4. Buyout speculation surrounds Mobile as well. Colgate-Palmolive up 1/8. IBM gained 1 point, participating in the rally. Bell South, 10th in activity, showed no change. Among widely held issues, American Telephone showed no change. British Petroleum reported higher first-half profits and boosted its dividend. CBS moving up in sympathy with ABC, gaining 2 1/2. Exxon edged up 3/8, and Ford up 1 1/8. Now that GM has been picked as a strike target, although Ford said it would like to be the target, just like GM said it would be. It was happy about it. General Dynamics in a strong defense sector up 1 7/8, and there you see GM closing near its best level of the day, up 3/4. Safeguard Scientific up 1 3/8. We called the company. We had to give them the quote. They didn't know why the stock was up. They didn't even know it was up until we told them. Clevepack Corp up 1 1/2. Company knew of no reason for the strength in its stock. Stanley Works up 2 1/8. The spokesman said company's having a good quarter and a good year. Trans-Ohio Financial Corp, the biggest percentage loser, down 7/8. No explanation from the company. Revco Drugstores off 1 1/8. Kind of a negative story indicating there's a dissension in the management ranks. It was in the Wall Street Journal this morning. And also the chairman of the board said he plans no leverage buyout of the firm. City Investing down 1 5/8. The company discussed in a rather negative light in the Herd on the Street column in the Journal today, off 1 5/8. Over in the American Exchange, just about a 1-point gain in the market value index. Trading volume down about 250,000 shares from yesterday. Advancers led losers by a 3-2 margin. Topping the active list was Wang Labs B stock, gaining 1/2, followed by BAT Industries up 1/8, as was National Patent. Dome Petroleum lost 1/8. Alza Corporation, a good gainer yesterday when the FDA approved a new drug, hypertension drug the company makes, was down 1/8 on profit taking. Connolly Containers, the best percentage gainer on the curb, up 1 1/8. That's on no news. And New Hampshire Ball Bearings tumbling 4 points, on no news to account for that. Over-the-counter trading, a little better than a 1.5-point gain in the composite index. Trading volume well up from yesterday's pace, and advancers led losers by a 9-to-5 ratio. Topping the active list, Apple Computer gained 1/4. Pay and Save, which is the subject of a $22 a share buyout bid from the Trump Group of New York, down 1/2 today. Intel gained 1 point. Digital Switch up 5/8. Micron Technology, 5th in activity, up 2 1/8. National City Corp up 1/2, and Shawmut Corporation gained 1 3/8. Diversa Foods up 3/8. Phillips Glue Lampen up 1/8. MCI Communications gained 1/4. Sunrise Savings and Loan did well on the news that an individual broker with Makefield Securities now owns 6.4% of Sunrise. Visual Technology tumbling sharply. The company said it expects a 3rd quarter loss. And Health Resources Corp down 3.5 after Hospital Corp of America terminated buyout discussions. Finally, we see Chrysler Corporation up nicely on the news that it's boosting its dividend quarterly from 20 to 25 cents a share. Bond traders took encouragement from the fact that the Federal Reserve has been infusing funds into the banking system in each of the past 4 sessions, and when the Fed funds rate finally showed signs of easing this morning, bond prices began to rally. Ironically, the UAW's choice of General Motors as the target of a possible strike also helped bonds under the theory that if a walkout occurs against the biggest automaker, it would have the most impact in slowing the economy and therefore might cause a decline in interest rates. Looking at the long-term government market, we see these treasuries of 2014 gaining 1 full point. Most of the strength in the treasury market. No change in these telephone corporates of 1990, and just an 8-point gain in these Intermountain municipals. And finally, the Fed funds rate still hovering around 11 11/16. And that's the Wall Street wrap-up. Linda?
Okay. In New York, former Wall Street Journal reporter R. Foster Winans and 2 others today pleaded innocent to criminal charges alleging that they profited from securities trades made on the basis of inside information about articles scheduled to appear in the Journal. After being arraigned in U.S. District Court, Winans and his co-defendants were released on their own recognizance. And in a separate case, one of President Reagan's former aides, Thomas Reed, also entered an innocent plea to insider trading charges. Reed is charged with using confidential information about a corporate takeover bid to realize a $430,000 profit on a $3,400 investment. Many Americans choose to put their spare cash not into stocks or bonds, but into state lotteries, which they see as their personal road to riches. Such events as the winning of a $40 million prize in the Illinois lottery this week help to reinforce that image. And for that reason, the industry that provides equipment to state lotteries is optimistic about its future. Peter Grauman reports from the industry's annual meeting in Palm Beach, Florida.
It's becoming a regular occurrence. A lottery jackpot climbs to record heights, tension mounts, and the winner is G-Tech, Syntech, Scientific Games, or General Instrument. These companies collect millions of lottery dollars without purchasing a single ticket because they're the ones that print the tickets or make the computer systems that allow modern lotteries to operate.
Lotteries are doing about $6.5 billion worth of business in the United States on an annual basis and growing anywhere from 12 to 18% per year. So it looks like it's a business that's going to continue to grow.
With somewhere between 5 and 15% of lottery revenues going to suppliers, the number of firms getting into the trade is growing. General Instrument's Amtote division was already producing parimutuel betting systems for horse tracks, but competitor G-Tech of Rhode Island has grown up with the lotteries.
We provide terminals and the software and the mainframe computers to run an online game, such as Lotto, the daily numbers game, those kinds of lottery games.
While Lotto is the hot game right now, most firms are pushing new video lottery games as the wave of the future. A test underway in Chicago indicates that younger people who have shied away from Lotto mania will happily wager 4 quarters on a machine that provides them some entertainment, even though the outcome of the video game has nothing to do with winning or losing money. That is predetermined by computer. But not everyone sees video lottery as the future. Charles Burry is director of the Arizona State Lottery.
I think we've probably seen the heyday of video. I think it's common knowledge that video games have been on the decline. I think the same can be said for the new generation, the Laserdisc games. And I really think lotteries, or video lotteries, will probably go the same route.
Besides reaching out to new players in states that already have lotteries, the industry is looking greedily towards the 33 states that don't, particularly California, where the issue is on the ballot November 6th.
It's big, and it would be the biggest lottery in the United States.
A victory in California will likely be the biggest boost so far for the public gaming industry, and beyond that, well, there's already talk of a national lottery. In Palm Beach, Florida, this is Peter Grauman for the Nightly Business Report.
As we have reported, a number of retail chains are in the process of upgrading their lines of clothes in an attempt to capture a higher percentage of affluent customers. One of the nation's leading catalog companies is now trying the same approach with its goods. Leslie Nickel of our Chicago Bureau reports on the remaking of the Spiegel Corporation.
Jumping from toilet seats and tires to fancy furs and designer dresses, Spiegel Incorporated might well qualify for the Quantum Leap of the Year award. The metamorphosis at the Oak Brook, Illinois-based catalog company has taken some 5 or 6 years. It got its start back in 1976 when Henry Johnson took over as president and CEO.
Our sales were gradually slipping down and our profits were gradually eroding, and the investment in the business was such that the return on that kind of investment was getting to be a very dangerous trend.
The problems facing the catalog retailer were twofold: a sagging fourth-place position behind Sears, Montgomery Wards, and Penney's, and an old blue-collar customer base that was turning to discount retailers like Kmart. Johnson decided the company needed a major overhaul, one that would result in a unique new marketing position. He went about swapping his lower-end clientele for the more affluent, upscale working woman. The target, families earning an average $40,000 a year. The catalog was completely revamped.
That meant complete overhaul of all our graphics and copy. Meant elimination of puffery in copy, exaggerations, emphasis on on price rather than value.
The admittedly risky change seems to be paying off. Just a few years ago, company profits totaled $2 or $3 million on $260 million in sales. By 1983, the company reported earnings had jumped to $513 million, and profits rose to $22.5 million. This new success did not come without its own set of problems, not the least of which seems to be getting the transformation word out to the buying public.
It's been one of our biggest challenges, obviously, because of where we came from. We have to, we call it, build an awareness to the new Spiegel. And the most important way we have of doing that is having an advertising campaign in upscale women's magazines, both fashion and home shoulder magazines.
Then there's the competition that seems to grow daily. Right now there are some 6,000 catalogs published each year. One of Spiegel's answers has been to develop specialized, smaller catalogs. But above all, according to noted marketing columnist Louis Lazar, Spiegel has identified a growing market and has positioned itself comfortably ahead of the others.
It's going to become a matter of the biggest and the smartest, I think, surviving. And Spiegel, I think, has shown it has a lot of clout. It has the money to spend on advertising itself. It has the, I think, the savvy strategy, and I think it can make its name more visible and make itself more appealing because it's bigger. There are a lot of little ones out there, but I think they may get caught in a bind because they don't have the kind of national clout that a Spiegel can exert.
As for the future, Spiegel is hoping to do $1 billion in business by 1987, a goal that will probably depend more on the company's ability to sell its new image than on the actual goods that go into making up that new look. In Oak Brook, Illinois, Leslie Nickel for the Nightly Business Report.
Coming up, Dan Lundberg examines the possibility of another oil shortage in the United States. Despite a rise in interest rates, investors took $280 million more out of money market funds than they put into them during the past week. Donohue's Money Fund report says the average 7-day yield on the funds climbed to 10.66%, up from 10.6% the week before. Meanwhile, the Bank Rate Monitor says the average rate on the bank money market accounts rose to 9.37%, up from 9.35% last week. Earlier in the program, we reported on the state of the nation's oil refining industry. In tonight's commentary, oil industry analyst Dan Lundberg gives us his perspective on the possibility of a major shift in the nation's energy situation and our preparedness for it.
There is rarely a time that we ever get down to what so many people call the final analysis. It makes a person wonder if there ever is one. However, as to a possible future petroleum shortage in America, we should be looking more and more in the direction of final analyses. Our percentage of the world's proven reserves has been shrinking dramatically over recent years. That percentage is at present only 4% of the world total. On the other hand, we consume 26% of all that is produced. By comparison, Western Europe's reserves come to only 3%, whereas Western Europe consumes 21% of available oil. In contrast, here's a rub. The Middle East holds 55% of the world's reserves, whereas its indigenous consumption comes to only 3%. Such distorted ratios won't last. The Middle East is emerging from its third world lethargy, developing its social infrastructures, building its own refineries that will further pinch down crude oil from their region. President Carter declared a moral equivalent of war to attain energy independence. That war was never won. It isn't even on hold. In some future final analysis, it will be realized that in 1984, we were in a lull, with OPEC busily drying up the glut. We lived through an Indian summer of increased driving at deceptively low prices. What we need most urgently is a clear present analysis of what is happening, how our presidential candidates perceive it, and what, if anything, they have in mind for a viable USA energy policy. I'm Dan Lundberg.
And now with tonight's last word, here's Paul.
Employees at the Magic Kingdom are getting a dose of reality. At Disneyland in Anaheim, California, contracts with unions representing 1,800 of Disneyland's 5,000 employees expire next Saturday. And Disney management is asking the unions to agree to pay cuts totaling 16% over the next 3 years. The management cites falling attendance at the California attraction worsened by the Olympic Games as the reason for the pay cut request. But Disney workers gave that explanation this rating, and they're threatening to strike.
That's it for this edition of the Nightly Business Report for Thursday, September 6th. For all of us, good night.
The Nightly Business Report is brought to you by Pacific Telesis Group, including Pacific Bell, builder of the communications network for the 1984 Olympic Games. Digital Equipment Corporation, the world's second largest computer company, providing computer solutions for professionals from professionals. And public television stations throughout the nation.
Family Issues columnist Dolores Curran gives advice on making your family stronger. And Remer Tyson from the Detroit Free Press discusses Africa on Late Night America with Dennis Holy. Coming up next, join us here on Channel 17.